All right, grats and gits. I'm freaking pumped up. We have the Warrior Bioform Onslaught as our reveal for today. Now, I have read through this. I've gone through the strats. I've seen some cool things in here. I want to preface this with this is a cool, fun detachment that will be usable, but it is also not going to be earth shattering. It's going to give you different ways to play your nids, and honestly, you can be competitive with this, but it's not going to be the new meta list. Sorry to say, but there will be some cool stuff with this, and you absolutely can play at tournament level with this, which is more or less one of the things that nids needed. So this is actually a very, very cool thing. I'm excited about it. Let's run through it. I'm gonna start pointing out some combinations that we're gonna be looking at because there are some spicy takes in this new detachment, which I'm freaking excited about. So let's break it down, baby. We are the Warrior Bioform Onslaught is the detachment name, and the detachment rule is called the Leader Beast. Tyranid Warriors and Winged Tyranid Prime units have a 5-up invulnerable save. Nice, awesome. Honestly, I think this is probably something they should just cook into the datasheet of Tyranid Warriors, to be real with you, but it's good to see them that they're actually going to be able to survive a little bit here. That's solid. They have a 5-up invuln, but it doesn't stop there. Now suddenly, Tyranid Warriors get the battle line keyword, so you can now take 6 units of melee warriors and 6 units of ranged warriors, which is really, really nice. So you can really start to spam them. And Tyranid Warrior models have an OC characteristic of 3. They're very clear that it's not when they're battle shocked, so it's not add 1, so for example, but they have an OC of 3. This actually does open up quite a bit of objective play because Tyranid Warriors with an OC of 3 gives you a massive amount of just OC and bodies that you can pump out. And as you can see, as we'll see in some of the strats, there's going to be ways to manipulate this as well. So let's start talking about some of these enhancements. These enhancements are actually all good, and they're all going to be usable. I'm not sure which ones we take and which ones we don't, though. The first one, for sure, we're pretty much always going to take. All right, this is the Synaptic Tyrant. What you're doing is you have a Neuro Tyrant, and then you say, hey, by the way, the Neuro Tyrant can attach to the Warriors. This is actually pretty dang profound. And if you don't quite understand why, well, let me maybe break it down for you just a wee bit. So the Neuro Tyrant, he will give +1 to hit to the unit. So now suddenly you're going to be taking him with the ranged warriors, and they're going to be +1 to hit. Solid. Then, if the target is battle shocked, you get to add 1 to the wound roll as well. Okay, cool. So now your warriors are always going to be, your ranged warriors are going to be +1 to hit. So getting them to that critical hitting on 3s, which they previously did not have. And if you're shooting a battle shocked unit, +1 to wound. It's very solid. Then they're next, they have the same ability because you're still going to want a Neuro Tyrant just for the ability to cause Shadow in the Warp at -1 everywhere. And you can still give out your command phase buffs. Now, since the Neuro Tyrant is a monster, your warriors can now shoot in melee, which is very, very cool. So I actually think this is a really interesting ability that you're gonna want. One thing I could maybe actually even see in this detachment is there might be a reason to take 2 Neuro Tyrants, one leading a unit of warriors and one leading a unit of Zothropes, which is it's actually a possibility. I kind of like the idea, to be honest with you. I'm not sold on it, but just initially, I'm kind of thinking about it a little. I'm like, that's maybe not the worst thing. All right, so then we're going to look at the next one, which is Ocular Adaptation for 20 points. Now, the Winged Tyrant Prime, he just gives +1 to hit to his unit. You're going to want this because it's great to have those melee warriors going to hitting on 3s, and then there's still Strength 6 with the AP2 with the full rerolls to wound because it's all twin linked. That's very solid. You like it, you love it, you want to see it. You could also, I guess, have him lead another unit of ranged warriors if you wanted to. I don't really think that you would necessarily use it on them, although there's a rationale for it. Then you have Sensory Assimilation. This one's also very interesting on a Winged Tyranid Prime. Each time an attack targets the bearer's unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So it's not stealth. It's just it's -1 to hit in shooting and -1 hit in melee. Then they have a 5-up invulnerable save. Honestly, this makes a unit of warriors quite tanky. It's pretty solid. And then we have the Elevated Might, which is also a very cool ability. I think it's overcosted. It's a little too expensive. The Elevated Might is 30 points. Let me scroll down just so you guys can see it on my screen. Tyranid model only. The bearer's unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. This is interesting. I'm trying to think what unit you're really going to be wanting this on. Because if I'm not mistaken, our Gene Stealers, here, let me just check this while I'm talking about it. Our Gene Stealers already advance in charge. Where is my... oh my goodness. Here we are. Let me just check the data sheet. No, they don't. Actually, they get to reroll it. Okay, so you can get Gene Stealers advancing and charging in this detachment, which is pretty cool. So having a unit of Gene Stealers with Brood Lord here, because typically you can only do that in Vanguard. So now advancing and charging in this detachment is cool. Advancing and charging with Tyranid warriors is also cool. I mean, there's use cases for it. I think it's too expensive. I think they need to drop that down to maybe 15 to 20 points. But it's still a good option to have available to you. So all of the enhancements are good. All of the enhancements are usable. I think Elevated Might, which is this advance and charge stratagem, is probably a little too expensive at 30 points. Now let's talk about some of these strats. I actually really like all these strats. And I think it's going to give some really good balance and strong play to the Tyranid player. It's not, I don't think it's going to beat out your Invasion Fleet or your Crusher, though. I rate this detachment on par with maybe Synaptic. So it's a good, solid choice, but it's not going to be the thing that you're going to see winning the massive tournaments. Although this, I could be completely proven wrong. Who knows, guys? Tyranid Warriors drop by 5 points each again in the next balance status slate, and then suddenly this could just be top dog. So we'll see. Because remember, all these attachments are going to be in the context of the big balanced data slate at the end of December as well, which is going to change a lot of rules. So we'll see how it goes. Synaptic Amplification is going to be the first stratagem that we have today. You're going to have one Tyranid's unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. Now, if that unit is a Tyranid's Warriors unit, you can select an additional Endless Multitudes unit from your army that is not battle shocked and within 6 inches of it. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in those units, meaning the Warriors and the Endless Multitude unit, make an attack, you get to re-roll a wound roll of 1. And the Tyranid's Warrior unit in particular also gets to re-roll hit rolls of 1. So this is actually a cool way to really start amping up some of the potential of your, let's say, ranged warriors. Because now they're going to be in shooting, rerolling wound rolls of 1 and hit rolls of 1, which is actually going to pretty dramatically increase their amount of damage output they can do. This is also a very interesting option that you can just put on an Exocrine, for example. Because a Exocrine, one of its big weaknesses is when it's shooting into the infantry, you just roll 5 1s. Now suddenly you get to reroll those 1s. That's very solid. So I actually do like that stratagem. It's a solid on-demand stratagem for 1 CP. And guys, just right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, you're still going to take a Hive Tyrant because you're going to need CP generation. I don't know if you're going to take the Swarm Lord here, but you're definitely taking a Hive Tyrant. All right. Synaptic Micro Nodes. This is used in your movement phase, and it is a 1 CP sticky objective stratagem. Sticky objective stratagems are great. They're always going to be usable. Every detachment wants them. This detachment's happy to have them. All right. Spontaneous Hyper Corrosion. This is in your shooting phase or the fight phase. One Tyranid's unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, add 2 to the strength characteristic of ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit, and add 1 to the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped to Tyranid Warriors and Winged Tyranid Primes. This is a very good strat. People might not understand how good the strat is, so let me break it down for you, okay? Any Tyranid's unit that uses this can just add 2 to the strength characteristic. Everyone in an Exocrine who's shooting at strength 11, pew! Strength 11 shooting Exocrines is batshit crazy, and it actually hurts my soul because I think the Exocrine is one of the most criminally undercosted models in the game. But this is spicy for them. You could also use that strat to buff up a unit of ranged warriors, perhaps led by a Neurotyrant who now has a strength 7 Super Flamer instead of a strength 5 Super Flamer. So there's a lot of really interesting and cool options to use this strat on. And then the +1 strength for your warriors and your Winged Prime is also pretty solid. Because don't forget, guys, in this detachment, you're going to be having your melee warriors that are going to be hitting on 2s, rerolling hit rolls of 1 with Twin Linked. Getting them up to that strength 7 can be a really big deal for certain toughness breakpoints, right? Because Twin Linked on their AP2 weapons, at strength 7 is going to be wounding everything on 5s versus strength 6, which will be wounding Land Raiders on 6s still. So it's actually a pretty big deal. I think that's an amazing strat, and it's going to go a really long way into carrying this detachment into certain places. Now we have the Parasitic Payload for 1 CP. Your shooting phase. 1 Tyranid Warriors with ranged bioweapons unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot. So this is limited to just the ranged warriors. They get ignores cover. Big deal, actually. This is a very big deal because when they ignore cover, it makes their low AP significantly more effective. In addition to this, you get to select one of the units that they shoot. So you can split their fire a bunch of ways and select one of the units they shot and then that unit just does not get the benefit of cover for the rest of the turn. That's very powerful because that's going to allow your ranged warriors to deny cover. So suddenly your Exocrin's AP3 is actually AP3. This is a huge deal, and it's an extremely powerful strat. Typically, you have to use your Pyrovores, but it can be very challenging to get your Pyrovores in range to strip cover. So this is actually a awesome freaking stratagem. Then we're going to look at the Restorative Impulse, which is in your command phase, which is just one of the best freaking stratagems anyone could have. Your command phase, regenerate a Tyranid warrior. Boom, done. What this allows for is it allows for objective play. Let's say that you have your entire unit behind a wall and one Tyranid warrior standing on an objective holding it. Well, your opponent's going to shoot, let's say they kill 2 warriors. So they kill the warrior that's on the objective, you remove them, you kill another warrior, or maybe even 3 other warriors. Well, in your command phase, you're just going to regenerate your Tyranid warrior onto that objective. Boom, you still score it. Very, very powerful and very useful stratagem. It can also help you avoid battle shocks, although with, Synapse, it's not generally the biggest deal, but there's a lot of use for this stratagem. It's pretty damn good. So I'm a big fan of this stratagem. Basically, any army in the game would kill to have a stratagem like this on their elite infantry. That's great. And then lastly, we have the Synaptic Shield. The Synaptic Shield is going to be your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. You target one Tyranid warrior's unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Now, if that unit is a Tyranid warrior's unit, select up to one Endless Multitude unit from your army that is not battle shocked and within 6 inches of it until the end of the phase. Each time a ranged attack targets either one of those units, so you can use it on the Tyranid warrior's unit and an Endless Multitude unit, your Gargoyles, your Hormagaunts, and your Termagants. I can't remember if the Neurogants count as Endless Multitude, but I don't think it's really all that important. Although, actually, now that you mention it, when you have like 22 of those things, -1 to wound can be a really big deal. Let's move on with this, though. Yeah, then you're just going to be -1 to wound as long as the strength of the weapon is greater than the toughness of the model, which it almost always will be in shooting in 10th edition. So yeah, that's actually very solid. Like, that's very reasonably solid. I like that a lot. Man, that's pretty dang reasonable, isn't it? Okay, this is a good detachment. This is not a busted detachment. It is not going to be top of the competition detachment. Although with our as we move on in the meta and we start seeing some balanced rules changes, this could be really, really good. I think the greatest issue with Tyranid warriors in general is simply going to be the fact that Tyranid warriors are on 50mm bases for God knows what reason. I just don't get why. It might even be 60, actually. Their bases are bonkers large. They need to be 2 sizes smaller. I think that's honestly the biggest problem with most of our these things with most of the Tyranid warriors. So this is a good detachment. I think Tyranid players are going to have mixed reactions to it. Some people are going to be cool, nice, sick, I get to use my Tyranid warriors. Some people are going to be like, oh, it doesn't beat Invasion Fleet or Crusher Stampede. Well, it's like, listen, not every detachment is going to be the single best detachment, but the really key lesson here is that this is a good detachment. This is not a bad detachment. This is better than Assimilation Swarm. This is better than Unending Swarm. This is probably about the same level as the Synaptic Nexus, in my opinion, which is a very reasonably good detachment that we do see putting up good results in competitive play. So I like it. I hope you like it. I'd love to hear your comments. You don't have to be a Tyranid player to have an opinion, by the way. Everyone's allowed to have an opinion on this. And I'd like to hear what your thoughts in the comment section down below. Until next time, everybody, crump on, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.